FBI Director Kash Patel is testifying at this moment on Capitol Hill, facing tough questions from a Senate Judiciary Committee on his running of the agency. Now, there was some back and forth when Patel was asked about the firings of several heads of the FBI. CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane has been listening into that hearing. He's pulled away, kind enough to speak to us and let us know what's happening. Scott, good morning to you. So how is Director Patel defending himself under scrutiny from Democrats, especially about the FBI purge and alleged politicization of the FBI?
That really has been the focus of the first 90 minutes of this hearing. Democrats pointedly questioning on whether Kash Patel has some type of political litmus test inside the nation's top law enforcement agency for people who work there or potential new hires. And he denied accusations a few moments ago that he asks people who they voted for before they're hired into the FBI.
Kash Patel, Trump's own handpicked FBI director, walked into a Senate hearing room and cracked under sworn testimony, exposing exactly what Democrats have been alleging for years about corruption and abuse of authority inside Trump's operation. Trump built his entire survival strategy on loyalty, and now he's watching the man he personally chose to protect him become the instrument of his exposure.
Remembering your oath to tell the truth, did you ever tell Donald Trump his name is in the files?
I have never spoken to President Trump about the Epstein files.
Did you ever tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The Attorney General and I have had numerous discussions about the entirety of the Epstein files and the reviews conducted by our team.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
And we have released where President Trump's name is in the Attorney's file.
It's a simple question. Did you tell the Attorney General that the President's name is in the Epstein files?
During many conversations that the Attorney General and I have had on the matter of Epstein, we have reviewed.
The question is simple.
Who
did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files? Yes or no?
Why don't you try spelling it out?
Yes or no, Director?
Use the alphabet.
Yes or no?
No, A, B, C,
Director,
D, E, F.
It sounds like you don't want to tell us. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files?
Because here's what Trump fundamentally misunderstands about power and loyalty. He believes he can command absolute devotion. He thinks he can handpick people who will bend every rule, break every norm, and shield him from every consequence. He wanted an FBI that answered to him personally, an agency that would hunt his enemies and bury his secrets. And Patel, with his history of fierce Trump advocacy and his willingness to attack anyone who crossed the former president, seemed custom-built for that role.
So you're not accountable for your decisions to take people who've served our country so admirably and terminate them without any cause?
That's a one-sided story. Anyone that has been terminated from the FBI, generally speaking, failed to meet the needs of the FBI and uphold their constitutional duties. And you providing a one-sided story from your perch is absolutely disgraceful, because the men and women of the FBI deserve better. And your attack on the current leadership of the men and women of the FBI is equally disgraceful, because now you're attacking the leaders that are our brave SACs in the field who are doing the job that this country needs. And we will continue to do it.
The perfect loyalist, the ultimate protector, the man who would do anything Trump asked. But something shifted when Patel sat down in that Senate hearing room. Something changed when he raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth. Suddenly, the calculus was different. Suddenly, protecting Trump meant potentially destroying himself. And when senators started pressing him on the most explosive issue of all, the January 6th insurrection and Trump's promise to pardon everyone involved, Patel made a choice that sent shockwaves through Trump world. He distanced himself, publicly, under oath, on the record.
Mr. Patel, while we're talking about your words, let's talk about the cowards in uniform comment for a moment, can we?
Please.
Would you like to tell us what that was? Put it in context to help the committee understand what that was about.
I think it's important. Thank you, Senator. During that time on January 6th, I was serving as Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense. And days prior, we had received the authorization from the President to issue the National Guard to protect you and your colleagues. But as you know, the law requires a request before the deployment of that guard. That request did not come in until the afternoon of January 6th. Once that request came in, this, unfortunately, as has been confirmed by his own testimony, I believe, the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, failed to immediately deploy the National Guard and instead took a break to speak to media and make personal phone calls. That endangered the safety of you and your colleagues.
When asked directly about pardons for those who stormed the Capitol, Patel didn't hesitate, didn't deflect, didn't give some carefully worded non-answer. He stated flatly that he does not support clemency for anyone who perpetrated violence against law enforcement on January 6th. Those words, spoken by Trump's own nominee, landed like a bomb in the hearing room. Because Trump has spent years building an alternate reality around January 6th, he's called the rioters patriots, he's labeled them political prisoners, he's held events honoring them, and promised repeatedly that upon returning to power, he would issue sweeping pardons, would free them all, would vindicate their actions. This has been one of his signature promises, a central pillar of his grievance narrative, and now his FBI director nominee just stood before the United States Senate and said no, said those people committed violence, said they attacked police officers, said they deserve to face the music. Imagine Trump watching that testimony. Imagine the rage, the disbelief, the cold realization that his hand-picked protector just publicly broke ranks on one of his most sacred issues. Patel was supposed to be different. He was supposed to be the one who would never waver, never hesitate, never put anything above loyalty to Trump. But there he was, in sworn testimony, drawing a bright red line between himself and the president who selected him, denouncing the violence, refusing to endorse the pardons, creating distance where there was supposed to be none. This isn't a minor disagreement. This is a fundamental rupture in the loyalty pact that defines Trump's entire operation. If Patel won't stand with Trump on January 6th pardons, if he won't parrot the party line about the rioters being heroes and victims, then what else won't he do? What other Trump positions will he abandon when the pressure mounts? What other promises of protection will prove hollow when the moment of truth arrives? And Trump, watching this unfold from wherever he's holed up, has to be absolutely losing his mind. Because if he can't count on Patel, if even his most carefully selected loyalist is hedging and distancing and protecting himself, then who exactly does Trump have left? Who's going to stand between him and the gathering storm of legal and political consequences? The answer, increasingly, is nobody. Trump is running out of shields. His loyalists are choosing self-preservation over blind devotion. And that's a nightmare scenario for a man who built his entire defensive strategy around personal loyalty. But it gets so much worse, because Patel's public distancing is just the visible tip of a much darker iceberg. The real terror consuming Trump and his inner circle isn't about what Patel said in the hearing. It's about what Patel knows. It's about what he might say next. It's about all the secrets locked inside his head from his time deep in Trump's inner sanctum. Kash Patel wasn't some peripheral figure in Trump world. He wasn't a low-level staffer who fetched coffee and stayed out of the important meetings. He was in the room. He was at the table when decisions got made. He was part of the machinery that went after Trump's perceived enemies in the intelligence community and the Justice Department. He was involved in the efforts to discredit and undermine the Russia investigation. He witnessed firsthand how Trump wielded government power as a personal weapon against anyone who crossed him. He knows about the politically motivated decisions, the legally questionable actions, the conversations where Trump demanded loyalty above law, protection above principle. And now Patel is under oath. He's sitting before senators who can ask him almost anything. He's facing questions that force him to either lie under penalty of perjury or tell truths that could devastate Trump. Every answer he gives is being scrutinized by lawyers, by investigators, by journalists. Every word he speaks becomes part of the public record, usable as evidence, usable as ammunition in impeachment proceedings or criminal investigations. Trump's team is terrified. They're watching every minute of Patel's testimony with their hearts in their throats. They're analyzing every phrase, every hesitation, every careful word choice. They're looking for signs that Patel might slip, might reveal too much, might accidentally or deliberately expose something Trump desperately needs to keep hidden, because Patel knows where the bodies are buried. Metaphorically speaking, of course, but in some cases quite literally when it comes to political bodies. He knows about the pressure campaigns, the threats, the demands for investigations into political rivals. He knows about the conversations where Trump made clear that the Justice Department existed to serve his personal interests. He knows about the efforts to overturn election results and the discussions about using federal power to stay in office. All of that knowledge, all of those secrets, they're sitting there in Patel's mind while senators ask him question after question. And with each answer, the danger to Trump grows. With each moment of sworn testimony, the possibility increases that Patel will say something that contradicts Trump's carefully constructed narratives, something that provides a roadmap for prosecutors, something that becomes the smoking gun everyone's been looking for. The dynamic is excruciating for Trump. He can't control what happens in that hearing room. He can't call Patel and scream at him to stay loyal. He can't send out a Truth Social post attacking senators for asking tough questions. Well, he can, and he probably is, but it doesn't change anything. Patel is under oath, facing the Senate, and every instinct of self-preservation is telling him to protect himself first and worry about Trump second, or maybe not at all. And we're already witnessing this tension play out in real time. Every time lawmakers press Patel on specific Trump administration actions, you can see the tightrope he's walking. He has to defend Trump enough to keep his nomination alive, to avoid enraging the man who selected him. But he also has to protect himself legally. He can't admit to anything that might expose him to criminal liability. He can't fully endorse actions that courts might later deem illegal. He has to parse every word, calculate every response, balance between maintaining Trump's favor and preserving his own freedom. It's an impossible position. And the more pressure he faces, the more questions he fields, the more likely he becomes to make a mistake, to say something he shouldn't, to let slip a detail that opens a door investigators have been trying to pry open for years. And Trump knows this. He can see the cracks forming. He can sense his loyalist wavering. He can feel control slipping through his fingers like sand. And right in the middle of this escalating chaos, right as Patel is creating distance and the walls are closing in, Trump does something that reveals exactly how panicked he really is. He fires his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, just cuts her loose, gets rid of her in the midst of all this pressure, all this scrutiny, all these legal battles on multiple fronts. The timing is impossible to ignore. Why would Trump fire his top law enforcement official right now, right when impeachment pressure is building, right when courts are ruling against him, right when his FBI nominee is creating public distance? The answer seems obvious to anyone watching. Trump didn't trust her anymore. He suspected she wasn't sufficiently loyal. He feared she might not protect him with the ferocity he demands. So he removed her and presumably plans to install someone even more devoted, even more willing to cross lines, even more committed to shielding him from consequences. But this strategy, this desperate cycling through loyalists in search of absolute protection, it's backfiring spectacularly. Because every time Trump fires someone, every time he purges his ranks looking for more reliable shields, it looks worse for him. It looks like obstruction. It looks like witness intimidation. It looks like someone who knows he's guilty and is desperately trying to surround himself with people who will help him escape accountability. And prosecutors notice that kind of behavior. Investigators document it. They use it as evidence of consciousness of guilt. They point to it in court as proof that the defendant knew he was in trouble and took steps to evade justice. Trump's response to crisis is creating more crisis. His attempt to build an impenetrable wall of loyalists is actually building the case against him. Every firing, every purge, every desperate shuffle of personnel adds another brick to the wall of evidence suggesting he has something to hide. And this connects directly to the broader storm engulfing Trump. The impeachment movement that's gaining steam. The court decisions stripping away his legal protections and immunity claims. Military leaders publicly questioning his competence and fitness. Polling showing a majority of Americans want him removed from office. And now, layered on top of all of that, his own hand-picked FBI nominee showing the world that even Trump's inner circle isn't solid, that even his most trusted operatives have limits, that when the choice comes down to protecting Trump or protecting themselves, they choose themselves. It's all converging. All the threats, all the pressure points, all the vulnerabilities are activating simultaneously, and Trump has no good options left. He can't withdraw Patel's nomination without admitting he made a catastrophic error in judgment. He can't stop the confirmation hearings or prevent senators from asking whatever questions they want. He can't silence Patel or control what comes out of his mouth under oath. All he can do is watch and hope. Hope his loyalist doesn't crack further. Hope Patel doesn't reveal too much. Hope the damage is containable. But with every passing day, every new round of questioning, every moment Patel spends under oath and under pressure, that hope looks more and more delusional. The cracks are spreading, the dam is breaking, and Trump is standing there with no way to stop the flood. This is the fundamental flaw in Trump's entire approach to power. He built an operation based on loyalty rather than competence, on personal devotion rather than institutional integrity. He selected people not because they were qualified or experienced or principled, but because they seemed willing to do whatever he demanded. And for a while, that worked. People like Patel defended Trump through every scandal, attacked every critic, spun every controversy. They seemed absolutely committed to protecting him at any cost. But there's a fatal weakness in loyalty purchased rather than earned. It only lasts as long as it benefits the loyalist. The moment protecting Trump becomes a threat to their own freedom, their own reputation, their own future, that loyalty evaporates. It disappears like morning fog when the sun rises. Because people who are loyal for transactional reasons stop being loyal the instant the transaction no longer serves them. Michael Cohen demonstrated this truth years ago. Trump's personal lawyer and fixer, the man who said he'd take a bullet for Trump, flipped completely when faced with prison time. He testified against Trump, told prosecutors everything, became one of the most damaging witnesses against his former boss. Alan Weisselberg showed the same pattern. Trump's longtime CFO pleaded guilty and cooperated with investigators rather than face the full weight of prosecution alone. And now the fear consuming Trump's team is that Patel might follow the same path, that he might become the next loyalist who realizes protecting Trump isn't worth destroying his own life, that he might decide his own future matters more than Trump's. And here's what truly devastates Trump about this situation. He created it. He built this culture of loyalty above all else. He demanded absolute devotion and punished any hint of independence. He surrounded himself with people selected solely for their willingness to defend him. And now that very culture is collapsing under its own weight. Because when you build an operation on self-interest and fear rather than genuine commitment and shared values, it falls apart the moment the fear shifts or the self-interest changes. Patel is showing everyone what happens when a Trump loyalist faces real consequences. He's demonstrating that the devotion Trump demands isn't sustainable when it conflicts with personal survival. And every other Trump ally is watching and learning. They're seeing Patel distance himself and protect himself, and they're realizing they might need to do the same. The entire loyalty structure is crumbling from within. Trump can feel it happening. He can sense his people pulling away, hedging their bets, creating distance just like Patel did. The isolation is growing. The circle of truly reliable defenders is shrinking, and there's absolutely nothing he can do to reverse it. You can't demand loyalty from people who've already calculated that protecting you is too expensive. You can't intimidate someone into devotion when they're more afraid of prison than they are of your anger. So Trump lashes out. He fires people. He posts raging messages. He tries to demonstrate strength while revealing only weakness. Because everyone can see what's really happening. Everyone can see a man who's losing control, losing his shields, losing the protection he spent years building. Everyone can see someone who's terrified of what his own loyalists might say under oath. The Patel situation is just the most visible example of a much deeper rot. It's the canary in the coal mine signaling that Trump's entire defensive strategy is failing. His loyalists are choosing themselves over him. His hand-picked protectors are becoming potential threats. His carefully constructed wall of devotion is revealing itself to be made of paper. And the timing couldn't be worse for Trump. He's facing impeachment pressure with public support growing. He's battling court rulings that strip away his legal defenses. He's confronting military criticism that undermines his commander-in-chief credentials. And now his own FBI nominee is showing the world that even Trump's inner circle isn't willing to go down with him. That even the most carefully selected loyalists have breaking points. That when the stakes get high enough, self-preservation beats blind devotion every single time. Patel's testimony about January 6th pardons was more than just a policy disagreement. It was a signal to everyone watching that he's not the rubber stamp Trump wanted, a signal that he'll protect himself first, a signal that his loyalty has limits and those limits are being reached. And if Patel, one of Trump's most aggressive defenders, is already creating distance before even being confirmed, what does that tell every other Trump ally? What does that tell the staffers and appointees and supporters who've been riding the Trump train for years? It tells them that the train might be heading for a cliff, and smart people don't stay on trains heading for cliffs. They jump off and save themselves. That's what Patel is doing. Maybe not jumping off completely, but definitely moving toward the exit. Definitely creating options for himself. Definitely preparing for a future where Trump isn't the center of his universe. And Trump is watching this happen in real time, completely powerless to stop it. He can't control the narrative anymore. He can't intimidate Patel into silence. He can't prevent senators from asking difficult questions. All he can do is watch his hand-picked protector become something closer to a potential threat. Watch the person he trusted to shield him reveal cracks that could bring down the whole structure. This is what happens when you build a political movement on personal loyalty rather than principles. When you demand devotion to a person rather than commitment to ideas. The person becomes the only thing holding it together. And when that person shows weakness, when that person faces consequences they can't escape, the entire structure starts to collapse. Everyone starts looking for exits. Everyone starts protecting themselves. Everyone starts distancing themselves from the sinking ship. Patel is just the latest example, but he won't be the last. There will be more loyalists who hedge under questioning, more appointees who refuse to fully commit, more people who choose their own future over Trump's. And with each defection, each crack in the loyalty wall, Trump becomes more exposed, more vulnerable, more alone. The irony is devastating. Trump spent years demanding absolute loyalty, believing he could command devotion through fear and favor. He thought he could build an impenetrable shield of people who would do anything for him. But now, when he needs that shield most, it's falling apart. The people he trusted are protecting themselves. The loyalists he counted on are creating distance. The wall he built is crumbling from within. And honestly, it couldn't happen to a more deserving person. Because you can't build a presidency on loyalty to one man. You can't run a government based on personal devotion rather than institutional integrity. You can't demand that people break laws and norms for you and then act surprised when they decide self-preservation matters more than your survival. Trump created this culture. He demanded this loyalty. He selected people based on their willingness to protect him rather than their ability to serve the country. And now that culture is eating itself. Those carefully chosen loyalists are proving that self-interest beats devotion every time. When the choice comes down to protecting Trump or protecting themselves, they choose themselves. Every single time. Patel's testimony, his distancing from January 6th pardons, his careful navigation of sworn questions, it's all part of the same pattern. It's the latest chapter in the story of how Trump's loyalty strategy failed catastrophically, and Trump, watching from the sidelines, can do nothing but rage and panic and fire more people in desperate attempts to regain control that's already lost. The walls are closing in. The loyalists are cracking. The protection is evaporating, and Trump is facing the consequences of his own approach to power, alone, exposed, and increasingly vulnerable to the gathering storm of legal and political accountability. This is what happens when you mistake fear for loyalty. When you confuse self-interest with devotion, when you build an operation on the assumption that people will sacrifice themselves for you, they won't. They'll sacrifice you for themselves. Every time. And Patel is just proving what everyone already knew but Trump refused to believe. That in the end, everyone protects themselves first. And now Trump has to watch his hand-picked FBI nominee demonstrate that truth in the most public way possible. Under oath, before the Senate, with the whole world watching. And there's absolutely nothing he can do to stop it.